Senator, what is the latest? The president tweeting that this is a witch hunt. He said, of course, that he is under investigation now for firing former FBI Director James Comey. Is any of this appropriate? What do you make of it?
I remember the days when I was a prosecutor, and before that when I was in private practice. If I saw somebody doing this, if I was their attorney, I'd take the account away from them. I'd say, if you're going to tweet, I can't represent you, because every time the president tweets, I can just see the special prosecutor going, make sure we archive that, because it's not what he says in one tweet or two tweets. It's a combination of all of them. So it's going to hurt him.
Well, when you look at where this is all headed, most people are. Do you think there's enough for right now, given the evidence that you've seen, for there to be charges of obstruction of justice brought against the president?
I think there's enough evidence to look at what's going on. I don't know what Mr. Mueller has found so far. I don't know what is in the Attorney General's office that they haven't talked about. But certainly there's enough to give a prosecutor reason to start sending out subpoenas and start trying to find out what's there.
The Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, has said he might have to actually recuse himself. Reportedly, he might have to recuse himself. Do you agree with that decision? And what do you make of the president and the administration suggesting that they might have to fire Mr. Mueller, as well as other folks who are looking into this matter?
Well, when you start firing the people who are investigating you, this is what Richard Nixon did at the time of Watergate. I would be amazed if anybody wants to go back to that precedent. We know what happened to Richard Nixon. And I think that you can fire somebody, sure. You start doing that, the president's going to lose the people who have been supportive of him here on Capitol Hill. They're going to start thinking of saving their own necks, and you're going to end up with a special congressional committee that he can't fire.
Let me ask you, you're on the Senate Judiciary Committee. When are these folks going to be testifying before your committee?
Well, I wish they were now. They should be.
So why aren't
we
they?
haven't had the Attorney General yet. By this time, in the beginning of the Obama administration, we'd had Attorney General Holder testifying. The Attorney General Sessions was twice supposed to testify before the Appropriations Committee. Both times at the very last minute, he ducked out. Come forward, just tell the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts, but trying to cover it up and trying to duck the questions, that hurts a heck of a lot more.
Let me ask you about another big piece of legislation that the Senate moved this week. Of course, I'm talking about the Russia sanctions. This is a bipartisan measure, but I think there's what else can lawmakers do? I mean, obviously Republicans disagree about whether or not there's an obstruction of justice cause, but what else can lawmakers do to bolster cybersecurity, to protect Russians from being able to hack anywhere else?
Well, first we have to acknowledge the fact that Russia does want to attack us, that Russia does want to influence our electoral system, and Russia is not our friend. They would like to get into our companies, get behind our patents, do everything possible to harm us. We have got to constantly be battling their cyber threats, number one, but then we got to start acknowledging it and making it public.
Senator Leahy, final question. A shooting this week, a horrible shooting. Capitol Police, of course, doing all that they can. What do you make in terms of where we are as a country with our rhetoric? Do you think that the tragedy earlier this week could do anything to soften some of the abrasive rhetoric, both in the halls of Congress?
I hope it does. I don't care which side it's on, whether it's President Trump during the campaign saying he could walk down the street and shoot somebody and people would applaud him, or things said on the other side. I don't allow this in my campaigns. I've never run a negative ad. I don't believe in citing violence. I spent 8 years as a prosecutor. I saw the results of violent crimes. I abhor violence. I don't care who caused it. I totally abhor it. And we should be doing more in this country to stop it.
Senator, President Trump reversing some of the decisions and the policies under the Obama administrations with regards to Cuba. Do you agree with this? Do you disagree with this?
No. It is a colossal mistake. If you did a vote of the American people, they would say it's a colossal mistake. He's doing it so he can announce at a campaign rally in Miami. That's not the way you make foreign policy in this country. We saw over 50 years of trying to stifle Cuba. It did nothing for our security. It did nothing for theirs. Now, under President Obama, we started opening it up. Not everything is perfect, but it continues to improve. The private businesses are expanding. Young people are getting a better understanding of the United States. All the actions President Trump is going to do is have them say, well, we can't trust the United States. They're going to turn to Russia, and they're going to turn to China. Russia and China would love to have the involvement in Cuba that we're turning down. They would love to be right off our coast and kind of thumb their noses and say, here, you didn't know how to have relations with Cuba. We do, and here we are looking at you from 90 miles away. I mean, it is a mistake upon mistake upon mistake.
And just quick follow-up on that. You talked about the national security concerns. What about the economic concerns? What about the U.S. businesses who have begun expanding tourism, airlines, who have begun doing business? Are they ultimately going to be hurt?
Well, of course they're going to be hurt, but they're thinking, what is it? You can't turn something on, turn something off. I mean, Americans can go to the worst dictatorships in the world, unless they say no, but our country won't say no. You can go to Turkey and Egypt, Saudi Arabia, all these other places. No problem. Cuba, 90 miles off our shore, is the only country in the world where Americans have to have permission from their own government to go. That makes no sense, and that's why both Republicans and Democrats have joined with me to try to pass legislation to change that. I think this is a colossal mistake on the part of the Trump organization. None of the people making it have ever been to Cuba. They don't understand Cuba. And what they're doing is trying to fulfill a campaign tweet. Well, this is American foreign policy. It makes no sense.